So is it possible to fix the effects of uneven mewing? What uneven mewing does, what it does is, what uneven mewing is, you put unequal pressure on the palate, and what that does, the side where you put more pressure gets developed more. If it's the right side of the palate, right side like of your face is going to be more developed, it's going to be just more defined. The left side is not going to be, and you're just going to get asymmetry. So can you fix that? Yes and no, because it's a little complicated, so let's just talk about it. If you are someone who has done uneven mewing and then got an asymmetrical face, and before you didn't have an asymmetrical face, then you can. The chance is high. Can't be 100%, but the chance is high. But if you're someone who's had an asymmetrical face all your life, then I can't be sure. Like if it's if it's in your genetics, you were born with, you weren't born with it, then I can't be sure, because I mean, I don't see it happening that much. And obviously we're not talking about surgery here, right? We're just talking about related to mewing stuff, and if some other exercises you can do to change that. So can you change this? And with mewing, let's just first talk about mewing, right? How would you change that? How would you change the effect that now you have asymmetry because you did uneven mewing? How can you change that? Well, pretty simple. Not necessarily that easy, but simple. The side where you put more pressure, now you don't put that much pressure on that side. You put that pressure which you put on the right side. If say let's just say right side where you put more pressure, now you're going to put more pressure on the left side. Now you might say, well, that's not easy to do, and that is true. Why? Because you have been putting more pressure on the right side. How like your tongue is trained to put more pressure on that side. It's just that that you might think that I've been, like, I'm trying to put more pressure on the left side, but I'm just not able to. Like my tongue naturally goes like rests on more, a little more on the right side, if that is the side where you put more pressure. And it's understandable, it will happen, but the only way you can put more pressure on, like fully touch tongue on the roof of the palate and then put more pressure, is just by practicing it. Like if you just started out doing push-ups, right, you wouldn't be able to do 50 push-ups. So you just have not been putting more pressure on the left side. So you just have to kind of train your tongue to put more pressure on that side. It's going to take time. There's nothing else really, like there's no tricks you can do to immediately just force your tongue to put more pressure on that side. It's going to take some time. That's the first thing. The second is chewing. If the side which is less developed is not that defined, chew more on that side. Now, one thing I will say, like I said, right, if you had asymmetry all your life, then the chance of this happening is less. Now, there are people who talk about different exercises, that you can do this, you can do that. I can't talk about those exercises because I'm not familiar with them. I've not tried them, right? I can only talk about what I know and what I've tried and what I've seen, the results and stuff like that. So if you are someone who had asymmetry all your life, if it's in your genetics, then it's a little different. You might not be able to change. I can't say that you cannot, but from what I know, the chance of that happening with mewing is less. Why? Because you already you have had that all your life, right? And even if you do even mewing, and let's say the right side of your face, or let's say the right side of the jaw is a little wider and the left is not, even if you do uneven mewing, because that left side is already wide, right, it's just going to be like that. And even if you put more pressure on the left side, like left side of the jaw, the palate basically, it might make it more defined, but that does not necessarily mean it can make it more wider. Now obviously your both, like the right side and the left side, both sides are gonna get a little wider, but the side which is already wider is just gonna look more wider because it's already just more wider because you were born with it. So I hope that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of thing. That's kind of what you can do about with if you have done your uneven mewing and now you want to fix the effects of that, basically asymmetry. Yeah, and for those of you who cannot change this, listen, you can't do anything about this now, right? And it's fine. Listen, right now you may care so much about it, right? You know, oh, I've got an asymmetrical face, you know, it just doesn't look good and this and that. Listen, you don't really care. Like, let me give you an example, right? You care more about how people would think of you rather than you like it's not just that, you know, if like if it was like if people, you think that people would either judge you or just would notice this more, right? But let me tell you something. If you see someone who has an asymmetrical face, are you going to be like, oh, you know, this guy has an asymmetrical face? Are you going to be like that all the time? No. And if you pay attention, everyone has asymmetry. It could be the eyes, you know, jaw. Everyone has, most people have asymmetry, right? Like I have tried things, right? And I can't fully have even jaw now, right? I can tell. So I just don't really care about it that much. Like before, I was like, you know, if I can change that, it's good, you know. And it wasn't because of how I look, you know. It's a little undefined, not undefined, uneven, right? So I was like, it's not necessarily because how it looks, but how it feels, right? Like if you have an, you know, asymmetry, you like especially the jaw, right? You will be able to tell like the side which is less defined or like less wide and the other one which is wide, right? You can tell that it's just your face, like it just doesn't, your jaw doesn't feel even. So you kind of have to do that to, you know, just feel a little comfortable, right? And that is what I just wanted to get rid of. But I don't think that that is gonna happen, and I don't really care that much about it. But I was like, you know, if I can, it's good. But if I can't, it's alright, right? Yeah. So if you're someone who can't change this, right, you just can't change it, and you might care a lot about it. Like right now, you know, like I said, that, you know, I can't change it. Oh, how am I gonna, you know, just change it? Listen, as time passes, you'll just forget about it. You won't really care that much about it. But if you make yourself think, like if you force yourself to think about it, obviously you're gonna be thinking about it all the time. So one thing, right? I said that if you have had asymmetry all your life, that it might not happen, that you know that your chance of fixing it might be less. Now it depends though. Like if you were born with asymmetry, it's different. But if you know maybe you were not born with it, but maybe you did certain things, and that is why you have asymmetry more. Asymmetry now. Maybe you slept on one side more. Maybe you were chewing on this side more. Now this side is more developed. Then that's different because that's not that's it's not something you were born with. So you're more likely to change that because you were not born with it. And again, I'm not saying that you can't change asymmetry. Like if you cannot get an asymmetrical face, if you were not born with it, but the chance of that happening is less. Again, not, you know, talking about surgery or anything like that. But yeah, that's the. And again, if you were not born with it, but you have it now, and even if it's even if it's before mewing, it might be because of certain things you did. You chewed more on this side, you know. You, if it's this side, and you slept on that side, you know, just, that side is going to be either just pushed more and yeah. So just look at that. Like if you were putting just not putting, if that's mewing, but if you were just chewing on one side more, yeah. And you can look at your pictures of the past to know, you know, if you had asymmetry from birth, or like it just later you had it because of some habits you had, chewing more on one side. So yeah, that keep that in mind.